Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today, I'm going to be jumping into my February wrap-up. I read 16 books this month and I have a ton of 5-star reviews for you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Before we start, I just want to say I'm sorry if you can hear my washer in the background. I needed to wash my clothes today, and there she is. She is loud, okay? I live in a cheap apartment. This bitch is going trying to wash my clothes. So I'm sorry for that, but this is the reality of the situation. So I hope you like the ambient noise of my sweat sets that I wear every day being washed. So I apologize for that, but let's get into the stats of what I read this month. Let me just grab my laptop. As I said, I read 16 books in the month of February for a total of 4,576 pages. Wow, that's a lot. My mood breakdown this month, of course, I had a ton of dark, mysterious, intense reads, as always. As for pacing, I had a almost even split between fast and medium paced books. 6 of the books I read were under 300 pages and 10 were above 300 pages but below 500. I read all fiction books this month, and here is the genre breakdown. We had a ton of thrillers, mysteries, horrors, contemporaries, and then I did read a few romance, erotica, and LGBT books this month as well. As for star ratings, I had an overall average rating of 4.13, which I thought was pretty good. I had 1 2-star, 3 3.5 stars, 6 4 stars, 1 4.5 star, and 5 5-star books. I feel like I say 5 5-star books. I think I've said that in the past like 3 wrap-ups I've done, which is just crazy. That is a crazy amount of 5 stars to kick off the year with. And then here you can see the breakdown of how I went about reading those pages throughout the month. So now that you know all about my reading month, let's go ahead and jump into the reviews. As always, we're gonna start at my lowest rated book and work our way up to my 5 stars. My lowest rated book this month, coming in at 2 stars, was Mr. Perfect by Linda Howard. Unfortunately, this was a 5-star prediction for me, and what a fail that was. I actually featured it in my 5-star prediction reading vlog. If you missed it, I will link it up above and down below, so you can go ahead and watch that after this video. But yeah, this was a kind of cozy mystery, romantic suspense-esque book. This book was published in the year 2000, and it just seemed very, very out of touch, which is why it got such a low rating for me. The whole premise is there is this group of women and they come up with a list of what makes the perfect man. You know, pretty normal, funny, like brunchy, happy hour conversation that a group of women would have. But in this book, it is apparently very, very scandalous, and it triggers this person who reads the list because the list kind of goes like 2000s viral. And this person who gets triggered by the list goes and starts picking off the women and killing them. And I thought it was just like a crazy sounding concept, and that's why I thought it would be a 5-star book for me. But it ended up being kind of problematic. The big twist at the end really rubbed me the wrong way, and just the way that women and people of color were talked about in this book, I just didn't like. Also, a murder didn't happen until over 50% through the book. There was a majority of the book focused on the half-baked romance. So yeah, this was a definite 2-star book. Disappointed because it was a 5-star prediction, but oh well, now I know I do not like that author and I won't be picking her up again. Now let's move on to my 3.5-star books. First up, we have Night Shift by Alex Finlay, and this is supposedly, allegedly, a pseudonym for the person who wrote The Woman in the Window, which is slightly problematic. And I do have to mention Alex Finlay's previous work, Every Last Secret. I know it did get some really great reviews, but the reviews from Latinx creators were overall pretty negative, and I just want to say in his previous book, there was some problematic representation of Mexico itself and the Mexican people who live there. So just know that before diving into a book by this author. But I did receive this as an ARC, so I wanted to look at it with a critical eye and give you guys the tea on it. So Night Shift follows this case from the 90s where this group of teens was slaughtered at a video store during their night shift. And now, like 20 something years later, a very, very similar slaying has taken place at the night shift of a frozen yogurt shop. So the final girl from the first attack helps the final girl from this present day attack through what she's been through, and they're trying to think, is it the same killer? Could it have possibly been somebody from the first case that got overlooked that has now come and done this slaying again? I thought with this book, we just followed entirely too many plot lines. It was just very confused. I was always trying to keep track of how many subplots we had going on, and I honestly didn't care about the majority of them. I really liked following our two final girls and the overall mystery of like who the killer was in each of the attacks. But all of the other stuff that was thrown in, and there's a lot that I like literally can't even remember because I did not care about it at all. That was just exhausting to read about, and I feel like it kind of dragged out the reading process for me. I did think the pacing was a bit off because of that, and the book just didn't flow the way you want a thriller to kind of suck you in and flow. However, I did enjoy how the plot kind of played itself out. I thought the main plot was crafted in an intelligent way. I thought it made sense. It was surprising. The very end of the book gave me that thriller feeling. It was very heart pumping. I was so nervous of what was gonna happen at the very end, and it ended up resolving really well, except for one piece. And I know like you're supposed to feel really, really sad about this, but I was just pissed off that my favorite character died. And obviously I'm not gonna give away who that was, and I haven't said who that is, but my favorite like character in the book got killed off at the end, and I'm like, I know that was for emotional impact, but also like Mr. Alec Finlay, I don't like that. So I thought this book was overall above a 3-star thriller. I was definitely more engrossed than like your average 3-star domestic thriller. So that's why I gave it a 3.5, but it definitely wasn't something that I will be overtly recommending like a 4-star book. Next up, I picked up Neverworld Wig by Marisha Pessel, and this is a YA sci-fi thriller. It was also a 5-star prediction in that same vlog that I mentioned for Mr. Perfect. It follows a group of kids who are stuck in this Groundhog Day-esque kind of time loop, and it won't stop until they solve the murder of one of their friends. So this one, I was really hoping that the like time travel, magical realism, sci-fi elements were going to be the main part of the story, and the mystery was going to be another part, and obviously those two things I'm set up to love. But we really focused on the YA dynamics between the kids, and I didn't find that interesting. Also, this book was really pigeonholing itself on like a message, a moral of the story kind of thing, and I find that a lot of YA books tend to do that, but I just really don't like books that tell me how to live my life.
I'm an adult. I don't need you to tell me how to do things. A YA book.
But I did want a nice fun mystery, and unfortunately that is just not what it gave me. I did like some parts of the book. I like the different archetypes of all the characters in the friend group. I like the trope that they used to solve the mystery. I thought it was pretty effective, but overall, not a favorite, 3.5 stars. And then my last 3.5 star book is actually such a disappointment, and that is Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. I know, I don't think I've ever given a Karen Slaughter book under 4.5 stars maybe, but I couldn't rate this one more than 3.5 because it was so long and tedious to get through. This book is very, very, very slow paced. and I actually prioritized it this month because the series is coming out on Netflix on March 4th. So I'm super excited to watch the series, and I actually think this story will lend itself a lot better to the screen than it is for written format, because I just found it a real slog to get through this book. It was a really character-driven story, and although I did enjoy the characters that we were following, it didn't feel like that Karen Slaughter level of story that I like. It was all of her character development and very intentional story crafting without any of the big excitement, gory, graphic details that makes a Karen Slaughter book so fast-paced and high stakes. I just didn't feel that with this one, unfortunately. There is one scene in the beginning that is really heart-pumping and scary. Trigger warnings for a lot in this book, but mostly for gun violence. There's a lot of gun violence in this book, and something about gun violence, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like visceral to me. Like, I get that it is very dangerous and very high stakes and a huge thing that we should be talking about, but I don't know, like, I just feel removed from violence when it's about guns, because I don't know about guns. I've never been exposed to guns. I've never touched a gun in my life. So like, hearing that somebody's been shot, I feel like carries a lot less of an impact than like an attack, a stabbing, a kidnapping, a rape, torture, like all these other things that Karen Slaughter has written about. I feel like a gun is just more removed. You can be feet away from somebody and engage in gun violence, and it's the same level of trauma, obviously, but it just, I don't know, something about it didn't hit right for me. Let me give you a synopsis if you don't know what this book is about. It's basically about this daughter going to visit her mom and finding out when this tragedy occurs that there is a lot more about her mom and her mom's life that she has no idea about. So she kind of goes on this journey all around the country to figure out who the heck her mom actually is and what is going on. So again, it is very, very character driven. We are literally just begging for scraps of pieces of her, like pieces of who the mom is. And unfortunately, I didn't really care. And a lot of the characters were flashing like back when the mom was younger and then into present day, and we're getting both. We're getting to see both, and unfortunately I wasn't invested, and I kept mixing up who was who. Like, I couldn't tell who was who from the past and the present, and there are so many like aliases and like different names that people use. Like, it was just a very confusing book, and this is so weird to say after me saying all this, but it did almost make me cry at some parts, because again, Karen Slaughter is so effective at developing deep, meaningful connections to characters. But I didn't care, and yet still I was almost crying. So it's like, I feel like I should praise her for that. And obviously the twists were fantastic. I couldn't predict anything. Every twist was shocking to me, but I don't know, something about it just didn't click for me. It's definitely above average, but again, not a new favorite. Nothing I'm really gonna over the top recommend to you guys.
So sad.
I don't think there are any more big disappointments coming up, so let's go ahead and get into my 4-star books. First up, we have 3 Hours by Rosamund Lupton. This is a UK thriller that follows the 3 hours over which a school shooting takes place. This is a very well-crafted novel. You can tell that the author approached this topic with empathy and really did their research into all the different perspectives that could possibly be had in a school shooting. And it definitely felt very emotional and very high stakes. I just wasn't expecting how hard this book would be to read. It was really hard to get through because it was so real. And honestly, I just found myself not wanting to pick it up because it was really sad. The graphic, gory horror of this book isn't like the fun type of horror. It's like actually horrifying. Like you can feel it in your gut, horrifying. So this definitely isn't like a fun slasher, and that is more the type of graphic violence that I like to read about. And yeah, I think I gave this a 4-star because it really just made me sad. And it's nothing about this book that was not well written. This book was wonderfully crafted and intentionally written. And I think if you want to know how it is to be in a school shooting, this gives you literally every perspective. And it complicates it because they're also in the middle of a blizzard when the school shooting is happening. So they're very isolated. It's hard for drones to like fly above the school and see what's going on. Like it was very, very real. So if you want to know about that and have this empathetic reading experience, I think it would be good for that. But if you're looking for like an intense thriller, this is not it. This is a very slow-paced, real-life tragic story. Next up, we have Kin by Keelan Patrick Burke. Obviously, I also gave this book 4 stars. This was a horror book, kind of more closer to what I was looking for when I was looking for that intense, heart-pumping, graphic violence. It is following kind of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets The Hills Have Eyes-esque family, where they are like these
inbred, incesty, creepy, cannibalistic, killer family people.
that live in the hills of, I think, Alabama, like the plains of Alabama. Yeah. And they end up killing and eating and torturing and just absolutely ravaging this group of teenagers. But of course, we have our final girl. One girl survives, crawls her way to the road, and this black man and his son find her and pick her up and save her. But because they did that, and just because they're black in Alabama, there puts a huge target on that man and his son's back. So you follow what happens not during the tragedy, but afterwards. It's kind of like almost like a sequel to a slasher where you get into the more character-driven, emotional parts of the aftermath of an attack like that. So we're following the actual cannibalistic family, the black man and his son that saved the final girl, and then the actual final girl. So we kind of have those 3 perspectives that all come together. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really intense and very well written. The writing was absolutely beautiful. It's very interesting to read a horror book and have it be describing these disgusting, crazy things and call it beautiful, but it was. The writing was really beautiful. I thought though that because of that flowery at times writing, it did make the book a little bit more slow paced. And it is definitely a lot more character driven as well. So it is not kind of what you're expecting when you watch a horror movie and it's just like a bloodbath. This is not that. So if you're looking for that, it's not going to fulfill that need. But I do think it is, for what it is supposed to be, a really, really great depiction of that. 4 stars. Next up, I read The Amendment, which is the sequel to The Arrangement by Kirsten Magdalene, and I loved The Arrangement. I gave it 5 stars. So this follow-up was really highly anticipated for me. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you a synopsis in case you haven't read The Arrangement. I really, really want you to read it, and I really don't want you to go in knowing anything other than it's about this couple who implements this arrangement into their relationship where they can both have one-night stands 1 time a week. And it goes off the rails from there. The follow-up, I don't think had quite the punch that the first book had. I think because you kind of know more of the background of what's going on, it just didn't feel as shocking as the first one. When murder happens, it's not like, oh my God, it's this domestic couple that all of a sudden have got themselves into this mess. It's more like, okay, yeah, we know the drill. We know murders are gonna take place. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It definitely wasn't bad. I did enjoy myself the time that I had reading it, but it just didn't hit as hard as the first one. So a little disappointing, but that often tends to be the case with me and sequels. So 4 stars, it was good. Next up, I read Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I ended up really, really liking this one. I did not think that I was gonna like Sally Rooney books, but a lot of my like real life friends are hoes for Sally Rooney. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try her out. And I have to say, I do get the hype and I watched the show and I really did like the Hulu show as well. But Normal People follows this couple, this guy and this girl in Ireland, I believe, and they're just growing up. And they kind of find their way together and then apart and then together and apart. And it just follows the ins and outs of their relationship from high school to young adulthood. And I thought it was a really, really relatable story. Again, it is definitely more character driven. I don't know what's up with me and all these character driven books in February, but I thought it just captured the essence of, like the title says, normal people so accurately and viscerally, and I really, really enjoyed that part of it. It definitely is not a whirlwind, idealistic fantasy romance. This is like a relationship that you would see in just two real life humans, and I really liked it for that. But at the same time, there was like this feeling of like, I'm not underwhelmed, I'm not overwhelmed,
I am simply whelmed.
That's the only way I can describe it, is like I wanted a little bit more. And I think that's the feeling the book was trying to evoke, is like, these are just normal people and we all want a little bit more. Kind of deep, but at the same time, like, that wasn't my favorite book of all time. I really, really like it. I understand it. I will definitely be picking up more Sally Rooney, but this was a 4-star book for me. I also picked up the Murders of Molly Southbourne by Tade Thompson this month. As you can see, I've been really into these like short horror books, but I was so surprised by this one. I really, really liked it. This is a obviously horror novella with some magical realism elements that I did not expect and I really enjoyed. Basically, this story follows this farm girl named Molly from the time when she is born and growing up to the time that she goes to college and kind of has to navigate the world on her own. And she has a very rare condition where every time she bleeds, another Molly is formed. But it's not a normal Molly. It is like the anti-Molly. Like, she's gonna be a little clone at first and just be like this cutie little clone, but eventually she's gonna try to kill the real Molly. So Molly, every time she just like scratches herself or has a nosebleed or just like a drop of blood falls, she's like on the hunt, ready to kill all the Mollys that are gonna pop up. And it is so crazy. Like, I don't want to tell you anything else about the plot because it just goes off the rails from there. But what I liked even more than the horror in this book was just being inside Molly's head. She's such an interesting character. She is so self-aware, and I just loved hanging out with her. And I know this is a series, so I would love to pick up the second one as well because I just really, really enjoyed her character. She had a quote when she was hooking up with this guy and he was like, "I love you." And she was like,
Straight up, no, you don't love me. I tricked you into thinking that you love me because I'm so emotionally detached.
like, she's just so like self-aware and like blunt, and I don't know. I just really liked her. She kind of reminded me of like Lana from the Mindfuck series. I don't know, it reminded me of the girl from 60, but in a more trippy, magical realism-esque kind of way. It didn't give me the 5-star feeling, but I really, really enjoyed it. I honestly just wanted more, and that's why I gave it a 4-star. And the last 4-star book I want to talk to you about is The Forbidden Romance of the Century. Everyone has been talking about this book, The Dare, by Harley something or other. I don't remember. Harley LaRue maybe? I don't know. All I know is I was seeing all this shit on Book Talk about how this book was banned. They took it off Amazon. They literally wiped it from Kindle. You cannot get it on your Kindle at all, because I was trying to get it on my Kindle. I couldn't. And apparently it was just too dark. It was too dark for the Kindle community that Amazon literally removed it. Now, this is a dark, trigger warning filled graphic erotica novel. If you have any triggers, anything that bothers you, if you don't like smut, this is not going to be for you. I just want to preface that right now. Literally, Mr. Jeff Bezos himself said, "This is too much, queen." And didn't he like go to space randomly? Like, I feel like that's pretty hardcore. And he said no to this. So just know that. but we're basically following, it's a romance erotica thing. So we're following this couple, and this girl is like head cheerleader,
popular girl.
and the guy is like this loser who she's always made fun of. He's quiet, he's emo, I'm in love with an emo boy type beat. And they end up going to a party together, and they get into this like drink or dare game, and he ends up daring her to do some things where she is kind of being demeaned and humiliated, and throughout doing these dares she realizes that she likes it, and it goes from there. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was really, really intense. If you don't like very intense smut, I would not recommend this for you. But if you do, and you like kind of experimental BDSM, kink type of things, I think you would really like this. There is stuff like blood play, knife play, etc. So watch out for that. The reason that I rated this a 4-star, not anything higher though, even though it seems like I really like it, is because there were a couple things that I just didn't think were hot at all. Like, they are actually not disgusting and like a, oh, that's disgusting, but like a giving me the ick kind of thing. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say what those are. So if you don't want to get spoiled for part of this book, I guess skip ahead to the end of when I talk about this book. But I will say, for the people who still want to listen, clowns, not sexy to me. Personally, I would get the ick if there was a clown in the bedroom. And second of all, group sex is something that I'm fine with.
I'm putting this on the internet. It's fine.
Reading about group sex really does not faze me. I do a lot of sex therapy in my practice. I've seen a lot of people with kinks, and in the BDSM community, I get it. But this type of group sex I felt was very demeaning to our female character, and there was no pleasure involved for her. And I get that that's kind of the point of it, because it was like a humiliation type situation, but it just rubbed me the wrong way. It gave me the ick. I didn't like it. So 4 stars. Moving on. I did have one 4.5-star book this month, and that is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. And this is another little horror novella. I freaking love horror novellas. And it is about 2 women who meet each other on this LGBT kind of forum, where it is a safe space for LGBT people to like buy, sell, trade.
It's yassified Craigslist.
That's what it is. It's yassified Craigslist. And our main character is trying to sell this antique apple peeler. And she meets a girl who's like, hey, would love to purchase. And our main character is saying, like, you know, it would really make me sad to sell this, so I want to make sure like it goes to a really good home. And then the girl who's buying is like, oh, I feel so bad that you have to sell this. I don't want you to have to sell something that has such a big emotional attachment for you.
If the washer could just shut the fuck up, that'd be great. I'm talking about a good book. Shut the fuck up.
So basically this girl says, I think we can come to another arrangement where you don't have to sell this peeler. I can pay you for something else. And things go from there. It gets very graphic, very disgusting. This is body horror to the max. And the direction it went just shocked the shit out of me. It was absolutely crazy. And obviously this is a very, very toxic relationship. And I did like the, not necessarily commentary, but just the representation that there can be abuse and toxicity, whether it's emotional, manipulative, physical, whatever type of abuse in queer relationships as well. I feel like every time an abusive relationship is talked about in a novel, it is mostly a man being abusive, and I liked being able to see a woman being abusive as well, because a lot of female victims in female-female relationships can feel invalidated or second guess the abuse that they're going through just because they're in the relationship with a woman who might be soft and pretty and all these things. It's just internalized misogyny, queen. So I really liked that representation and the kind of mental health side of things. There was also a lot of nuanced discussion about mental health in here, so I just really liked this book overall. I think it was horror, but it also had something to say. The only reason that this didn't feel like that 5-star feeling for me is because it was just a little bit too short. Like, how many pages is this? 60 something? It's like 80 pages or something like that. And I just wanted a little bit more. I wanted to see the aftermath. I feel like if there was an epilogue, it would have almost made it a 5-star. It could have. It had the potential to be. Now, let's go ahead and jump into my 5-star books that I read this month. First up, we have For Better and Worse by Margot Hunt. This is the final book that I read for that 5-star predictions vlog, so go check that out. But I'm so excited that one of my 5-star predictions came true and was actually a 5-star. This was a domestic thriller, and it also has legal elements to it as well, about a family who will do anything to protect their son. And I'm going to leave the synopsis at that because I kind of went in semi-blind, and I want you to go in blind as well. I would say this is a super, super underrated thriller. If you liked my underrated thriller recommendations from about a week ago, I posted that video. I will link it above and below if you missed it. This will definitely fit into that category as well of being an extremely underrated thriller. It deserves so much more hype because it absolutely blew me away. The commentary about our legal system was chef's kiss, and the ending, the last chapter juxtaposed with the epilogue was just, it was everything. This book is everything. It was so entertaining. I read it in a day because I was just flipping pages. I could not stop reading. It was extremely gripping and fast-paced. 5 freaking stars. Next up, we have The Roughest Draft. Oh my God, this is one of my new favorite romances ever of all time. I freaking loved this book, and I know it's getting really bad reviews. Y'all, I don't know. This just hit for me. I live in Texas, so there was like a weird 3-day streak in Texas where it was like 85 degrees, and I was laying out by the pool every single day, and I read this laying out by the pool. It was the perfect atmosphere. If you're gonna read this book, you better read it either at the beach or by the pool because there's no other option. And I thought it was so good. It is giving me all the beach read vibes. It is about 2 writers who co-wrote a book together that was a massive success, but then they had a huge falling out. However, they still have to fulfill their contract with their literary agency and their publisher, and they have to write another book together. So there's just drama. Oh my God, there's just so much drama. Because obviously they have these feelings for each other. It's a romance, but it's like a hate to love because there's some animosity, and you're trying to figure out, where did this animosity come from? What happened? Why was there a falling out? So we're kind of flashing back and forth between the writing process of writing that really successful novel and their writing process now writing this other novel, and how they just like parallel, and how their relationships parallel the relationships they're writing about in the books because they write romance. Oh my God. This book is so good. This book is so fucking good. I don't care. I don't care about what all the negative reviews say. The negative reviews are like, cheating. I don't like cheating. Too fucking bad. This book is beautiful. Like, I don't know. If you're triggered by cheating, I guess don't read this, but it didn't bother me because I'm like, this is real. It's real. They need to cheat on their other people because it's real. They need to be together. Like, I know cheating is bad and like you shouldn't excuse it, but like, I just love these characters and I wanted them to be together, so I was like low-key excusing it. It's fine. Also, the cherry on top of everything is that this book was beautifully written. Beautifully. Like, I have so many quotes from this that I wanted to highlight, and I was so upset because I read this book in a cafe and by the pool. So I was like, I don't have a highlighter, I don't have tabs. Like, I immediately want to reread this and go through and highlight it because I swear at least twice a chapter there was like a beautiful, beautiful quote that I wanted to fucking write on my wall. It was so beautiful. Also, this book is written by an engaged couple.
Are you kidding me? It's co-written by an engaged couple, and it's about a co-writing duo. Are you kidding?
I know not a popular opinion, but I stan The Roughest Draft. Next up, let's talk about Hostage by Claire McIntosh. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this book, even though it's been out for a fairly long time. It came out at the end of 2021, and I picked it up on audio from my library, and I really ended up liking it. Obviously, I gave it 5 stars. It follows this flight attendant, and she gets caught up in this hostage situation. So basically, the hijackers that are hijacking the plane tell her, we have your daughter kidnapped, and if you don't help us hijack this plane, we're gonna kill her. So she has this impossible choice between saving all these people on the plane and killing her daughter, the person she loves the most, or saving the person she loves, her sweet little daughter, and killing the whole plane full of people. So it is a pretty impossible choice, if I do say so myself. And this book is just absolutely riveting. Once the plane hijacking happens, which it does take a little bit to get into it, so I get it, like it's kind of slow at the beginning, but once you're in it, oh my God, you're in it. And y'all know I love thrillers that are exciting and don't lose the heart pumping feeling, but also have something to say. This shit has something to say. There's a lot of commentary in this book about just like, I don't want to give away exactly what it is, because I feel like you should just go in and read it and know, but I feel like a lot of people will get a reality check reading this book. It kind of says you got to take the things that you're passionate about and realize that we can fight for it, but at some point the system's got to fix it, because you attacking an individual person is not going to fix it, and you killing an individual person is not going to fix it. And until we tackle the system, the individual, like you attacking the individual, is not going to do anything. So all this passion that you have for like individual people and cancellations is really misplaced, because it should be to the system. And I get it, like there are people that uphold the system, but like, oh my God, I could literally rant about this forever. You just have to read it. If you like thrillers with commentary, this is a great one. It is so fast paced. It is so shocking. The twist at the end literally blew my mind. Please read this book. And I highly recommend it on audio, because I didn't really feel the slowness at the beginning. I think it's because I read it on audio. Some people that read the physical book said that it did drag a bit in the beginning. Next up, we're getting in my top 2 books of the month. Next up is a contender for my favorite horror book of all time. It's another little horror novella, We Need to Do Something by Max Booth. Oh my God. Oh my God. These like top 5 books, I could rant about them for hours. They are so fucking amazing. This book follows a family during a crazy tornado, thunderstorm, natural disaster situation. And they all lock themselves in a bathroom to try to like be safe, you know, and a tree ends up falling on their house in the perfect way, where it blocks the door to their bathroom and essentially locks them in there. So they're stuck there for days, and they're waiting for rescuers, but it seems like nobody's coming, and they can't just sit around there and wait to die. So they need to do something, and what they do is insanity. There are also some like more speculative horror elements to this. It doesn't just all take place in like reality, which I loved. There's some witchy stuff in here, because the daughter in the family has a witchy girlfriend, which I was just obsessed with. So yeah, this was simply phenomenal. I feel like I can't dive in and say too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but like, oh my God, this is so good. I will just warn you, this is not going to be your thing if you don't like ambiguous endings. I love a slight choose your own adventure, ambiguous ending type beat, and that is definitely what this is, but I know that bothers some people, so beware. If you don't like that, don't go into this. There's also a movie adaptation of this on Hulu, and I thought it was so good. I loved it. It was like almost exactly how I pictured it in my mind while I was reading this, and this is also a very like visual experience while you're reading. Oh my God, the movie was so good. I watched it with my fiance, and he did not like the ending at all, but he's a very like based in reality kind of person. He did not like the speculative stuff and the open ending, so I was freaking obsessed with it. He hated it. I think it really depends on the type of stuff that you like, but if this sounds like something you would like, I'd say go for it, pick it up immediately right now. And the last book I have to talk about was my top 5-star book of the month, which is The Baby Shower by S.E. Lyons. I don't know quite when this comes out. It should be in the next month or so because I did read this as an ARC copy, but I always say this about S.E. Lyons books. They are so underrated, so underhyped. I don't know if it's because S.E. Lyons is a British author and the books do read very, very British. So maybe they're just more popular across the pond. But I think S.E. Lyons needs to be hyped more in the US because if you like domestic thrillers, you are going to love this one. This is a bitch, I'm gonna snatch your life story, and I have never felt such visceral emotion for a character. It reminds me of that book that I read, I'll Never Tell by Abigail Haas, where I just felt like angry and tense the whole time I was reading on behalf of our main character. I felt those same passionate feelings about the main character in this book as well, because we're following this girl. She's just like your average girl. She owns a house, she has a cute little husband, she owns a coffee shop in town, and she's not too high maintenance. She's not like an Instagram baddie. She's just like out here trying to live, and she has her little group of friends, and they get drinks every Friday happy hour. And one day her best friend in her like little group of friends invites this other girl along, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna invite this girl to Friday drinks. And immediately our main character is like,
what's going on?
Because it's like that weird female friendship dynamic of like, hold up, if we invite this girl to like one drink thing, like that's fine, because if we end up not liking her, we don't have to invite her back. But if we invite her to like a recurring thing, then it's like she's part of the group now. Also, like, is she gonna fit with the group dynamic? And should I even be mad about this because I'm a grown woman and this feels like middle school? Like, do I even have a best friend? I'm a grown woman. Like, all of those type of dynamics touched on beautifully. So nuanced. The conversation about female friendships in general was so great. I like highlighted a quote and took a picture of it because it just resonated so deeply with me, and I'll put it on the screen really quick. You can pause it and read it if you want, but I just really enjoyed this book. I had a stark emotional investment. It was fast-paced, it was exciting, it was twisty, it had that like Last Mrs. Parrish, bitch, I'm gonna snatch your life kind of storyline, which I love. And it had that commentary. It had something to say about female friendships and how nasty this kind of like adult bullying almost can be. However, there is a huge trigger for infertility in this book. One of the main like sinister ways that our bitch who's snatching our main character's life gets to her is our main character has been struggling with infertility, has gone through rounds and rounds of IVF, and the girl who comes into town has something to do with a baby shower. So it's very triggering for our main character, yada yada. I could literally talk about this book all day long because it is so good and so underhyped. Y'all need to pick it up when it comes out, especially if you love bitch, I'm gonna snatch your life thrillers, and if you're a woman who struggles with female friendships like myself, because I felt really seen in reading this book. So that was a lot. Thank you for sticking with me through this long ass wrap up. If you like this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. Bye. See you in the next one.